You look at your cell phone and you suddenly realize that you don't seem to have any service. And at first, you don't think it's the most unusual thing. I mean, as a Gen Xer, we've watched these phones evolve, and there were plenty of times where you didn't have a signal. And it's a little rarer today. So you think, well, maybe something's just glitching at the cell phone tower. I mean, that happens, right? And then sometime later, you get on your laptop because you still don't have a cell signal, and you go to check things and you check your email and you realize, my email password's been changed. You might be the victim of SIM swapping, or what's called a SIM swap scam. You might not have heard it, but SIM swap fraud is growing rapidly. You see, without physically stealing your phone, those scammers, they've stolen what your phone can do, such as receiving phone calls or texts. And every minute that you wait, those scammers, they're using your phone, the data that's supposed to be going to your phone, to change your email passwords, your bank account passwords, and other financial sites that you might have some of your valuable savings, things that you've worked hard for over the years. And once they change it, they're initiating those transfers to their accounts and charging your credit cards to the max, while you're still busy trying to prove to your banks and your credit cards that you've been hacked. You know, if you're like me, a Gen Xer, then you're using your phone more and more, but also less reactive than maybe, let's say, a Gen Zer, that as soon as they lose their cell phone signal, they're going into DEFCON 4 because they can't not have a signal. You know, the longer that we wait to react, the more this hacker, the scammer, they're winning and we're losing. I'm Kyle Wilson with Midlife Pizza Slice, and in this episode, we're talking about SIM swapping or SIM cloning. Basically the same thing. Think about it. How many times do you use your phone to access your bank accounts, your financial records, to do a little bit of shopping, to check on medical records, your credit card balances? All kinds of things are now centered around what you're doing on your phone. And more, these sites are starting to use that, you forgot your password, well, we'll send you a 6-digit code via email, text, or call. How easy would it be if I was a scammer to set up a new password on those accounts? Especially if I'm getting your texts and your emails and your calls, and you're not. When you forget your password, right, you click that little forget password icon, email shows up, verifying that you're supposed to be you, and now you can suddenly change your password. Well, now, that's getting done by the scammer. So here's the big question, right? How does this even happen? How does a SIM swap even take place? Well, a bad actor, somebody who's impersonating you, contacts your cell phone carrier, impersonates you, and tries to convince them to switch the service really from one phone, your phone, to another phone. See, your phone has in it a little SIM card, and that SIM card stands for Subscriber Identity Module, and it connects and tells the carrier, oh, this is Kyle's phone. Now, if the impersonator can get the carrier to buy some sob story about the card, the phone being stolen or lost, and can they say, here's my new phone. So here's my new SIM card information. Well, if the carrier buys into that, they're going to switch your service so that all the data, meaning all the texts and phone calls that was going to your phone, is now going to go to their phone. It's not that once they get your phone to get switched over and now they have the phone that's connected with the account, that it's all over, but now the work starts for them. Because if they've obtained your email address, which they probably have, because let's face it, we've given our email addresses to hundreds, if not thousands of different people or websites or who knows what, and they can associate, oh, Kyle Wilson's email is X, so we're going to try and get into that account. And once it asks us, hey, did you forget your password? And we ask it to send us a text to be able to get in so that we can now change the password. Well, now they have access to your email. And once they have access to your email, they can start finding what banks do we have, where have we been shopping, what kind of things have we been doing via our phone probably, because now they can look at the texts, now they can look at the emails, and now they can start changing even more of our accounts. So how do these hackers and scammers get the information that they need in order to impersonate you? Well, I keep getting these notices that, my doctor's been hacked and my information is now out there, it should be my personal information. I mean, things like that just happen. And those hackers are getting a hold of our information, our social security numbers, date of birth, our address, our previous addresses, anything that's part of the data. And there's a lot out there. And then again, we also put a lot of information out on social media, Facebook and Instagram and, X, Twitter, all these different things. And because of that, there's a lot of information floating about that they can get their hands on. And once they do, then they can leverage that to try and convince the cell phone carrier that they are you and they get to win. The other way that they're doing those SIM swaps out there is rather devious. They're sending messages, emails to employees of the service providers looking for people who are disgruntled, who are unhappy with their job situation. Maybe they got looked over for a promotion or a raise, and they're going to try and bribe them to do a SIM swap. Hey, I'll give you $300 to switch the SIM from this account to a different SIM. And honestly, for some people, especially overseas, they offer them a few $100s. That's a lot of money. What's it to them to go ahead and switch a SIM? So as I mentioned before, SIM swap scamming is up. It's on the rise. It's happening more and more often. And just because maybe you don't know somebody who it's happened to yet, or they haven't admitted it's happened, it is happening more and more. Between 2018 to 2020, the total losses were $12 million in those 3 years. So in 2021, SIM swap scamming and those crimes were estimated at $68 million in losses. And now in 2023, the estimate is that the SIM swap attacks have risen over 400%, and they're still estimating what those losses are. So I think you have the same question that I do, which is, what are we supposed to do about this? How am I supposed to protect myself from this kind of a scam? Well, just like if you were the king of a castle, you would want to make sure you have a drawbridge and you have a moat and you have armed personnel guarding your castle, protecting what you have worked so hard for. You need to be able to do the same. You need to set up some barriers of entry that will hopefully either stop or slow down the scammers from being able to do a SIM swap. One of the first things that you can do, and I think this is one of the easiest, of course, is to go on to your carrier's website. Go to under security. There should be a setting. If you're not sure where it is, you could probably also Google it and it'll come up on how to activate this. But you can activate a SIM lock setting that will lock down your phone, meaning if a scammer tries to call in, tries to impersonate you and swap that SIM, they will not be able to do so unless they can unlock that. And they can't unlock it if they haven't been able to do the switch on the SIM. So it's a pretty good way of locking things down for yourself. Now, when it comes to the websites that you want to protect to make it harder for somebody to get in, let's talk about a couple of different things. One is, of course, make sure you're using a complex, very random password, nothing simple. Please don't use Spaceballs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would not be good. The other thing too is those security questions sometimes that websites will ask. Try to pick the ones that aren't very easy as far as the information. What street did you grow up on? What was the name of your first teacher or the first car that you drove? if I'm a scammer and I really am trying to get data on you, I probably can find some of those things out. Whereas some of the other security questions, who's your first girlfriend? What was the first pet that you ever had? Those things aren't so easy because we didn't have social media back in the days when we had our first love or our first pet. So good chance there's no digital record of any of that information. The next thing, use an authenticator app. Very popular. Things like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, Authy, there's a number of them. Because you're going to want to have more control over that 6-digit code that you need to get into a website. Because remember, you don't want to do the ones where you say, we're going to text you a 6-digit code or email it to you. Because that could go into the hands of the hacker. And with an authenticator app, such as Duo, Google Authenticator, Authy, any one of those, it's really your personal phone that is generating the codes that you need. And like we've said before, the hacker, if they do the SIM swap, is not getting everything on your phone, but they are taking control over what would be going to your phone. Emails, text, other data. So with an authenticator app, that is being generated right there on your phone. Now, here's a challenge that I found as I've been looking more and more into this, is that not all banks are actually using or allowed to use authenticator apps. Some of them you have to use things like passkeys. Passkey is a digital credential that allows users to sign into a website or an app without using a password. Let me say that again. A passkey is a digital credential that allows users to sign into a website or an app without using a password. Passkeys are designed, of course, to be more secure, faster, and easier to use, but then you have to go through the process of setting up passkeys. And that can be a little bit of a learning curve, not terribly difficult. I'm in the process of doing it myself. And as a matter of fact, one of my next few videos, whether it's the next one or one after that, I'm going to walk you through all the things that I have been doing to better protect myself from not just a SIM swap, but anybody trying to hack in and get to financial accounts, bank accounts, medical records, all these other things that have more sensitive information that I would not want a hacker to get into. Now, there are other things like biometrics, okay, which is great as well. Facial scans, fingerprinting, anything like that, that is going to definitely identify you as that. You just have to watch how is that set up, because of course, if I use a fingerprint scan to get into my phone, that's really not the level of protection I want. I really want that level of protection that there has to be a biometric in order to even access a website on my behalf, which is something that the scammer is not going to be able to easily replicate by any means. I know this is a lot of information to take in, especially if this is the first time that you're even hearing about SIM swapping or SIM cloning. And I think the emphasis really is that we are very vulnerable if we're using our phones more and more, which a lot of us are, because that's just the way things are in our culture, our society. And more is done on the phone. So here's some keys to remember from this video. First is that SIM swapping or SIM cloning, it is happening, it is a threat, and it's on the rise. Long passwords, SMS or email-based codes that go on your phone when you log in, if you get SIM swapped, they're going to go to the scammer. So although it seems really safe up front, it's really not. How screwed are you if that happens? What is it that you could lose? Because I think that creates a sense of urgency for trying to put something into place that you can proactively do. And there are things, right? That's number 4. There are things that you can do about this to protect yourself. Creating those barriers to entry, like we said, that moat, drawbridge, and armed, guards in your castle. Use an authenticator app. Use things like biometrics, face recognition, passkeys. Learn more about those because they are really good to use. They are very, very strong protection. And number 5, the more that you have to lose, the more, let me emphasize, that you should protect yourself, because this is something that's going on in the world. If you had a valuable art collection or guitar collection in your house, you'd probably put some kind of form of security around your house to try and protect it. I'm Kyle Wilson with Midlife Pizza Slice, and if you're a Gen Xer and you've enjoyed this episode, then hit the like button, be sure to subscribe for future episodes, and do me a favor, drop a comment about how you're planning on protecting yourself from SIM swaps, or maybe if you've had an experience with them and trying to get scammed yourself. I would love to know more about what you did and how you handled it. Until the next time, keep living the good life in your midlife. I'll see you soon.